Pledge of Allegiance. Rob?
Dan, salute, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Shane, the invocation.
Heavenly Father, I thank you so much for this day, and I thank you for the rain that you gave us this week, and I just thank you for letting us be a part of such a great district. And Lord, as we make decisions tonight, I pray that you give us wisdom, and we acknowledge that all resources come from you. So we ask that you continue to take care of us and provide for us. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you.
Thank you. And John will read the mission.
Mission of GISD. The mission of Gatesville Independent School District, a portal to limitless possibilities, is to empower our students to be life-ready knowledge seekers and problem solvers by instilling leadership, innovation, integrity, critical thinking, and service through challenging and engaging learning experiences facilitated by passionate teachers and supported by caring parents and community members.
Thank you. And we begin our meeting with Mr. Frazier.
Okay.
Our final budget amendments for
Item 1.
2018 to 2019.
Good evening, board. Good to see you all. Thank you all for showing up for this meeting. It's a very important meeting. We have a lot of things to cover tonight, and the first one we're going to work on here is the final budget amendments for fiscal 18-19, which is the year that's just about to expire this weekend. This first page on page 9 of your board book are those amendments that are performed during the regular course of business during the month of August. We had one that's charged to the fund balance, which is that last one there, for another payment to our architect firm. And we're now at 50% of the construction documents. On the second page, on page 10, these are our safety net budget amendments that I recommend to you each year, right at the end of the year. As you know, we on the audit report, you cannot exceed any function category, whether it's 11, 12, 13, any of the functions. So we keep the books open until about mid-October. So we'll be getting bills and invoices that are referencing this school year all the way through mid-October. And so those count up against this current school year. So a lot of it is like kind of guess, or sometimes you get a few surprises. And so you basically need to put a little safety net in here for each of your functions, just to make sure that if you're not thinking of something and it comes in and does get charged that function, that we won't go over. Because you will get a little ding, a little reprimand on the audit if we go over on any of the functions. So that's just a little housekeeping. So there's nothing to be too concerned about. It's just something to eyeball and try to make an educated guess. The total of them is about 300,000. And so that's that. If you have any questions on any of the budget amendments before we go on to the next item.
What is the function of 51? What is it?
51 is facilities, maintenance, property maintenance. 51 ran out of money. I knew going into this fiscal year that it was going to be very tight, and they probably ran over about 100,000 as a department. Unfortunately, we had a lot of leftover unused gas money in transportation, so this is where little brother owes big brother on this budget amendment.
Okay, Mr. Frazier, so you're recommending
Approval of these budget amendments.
you recommend to approval of the final budget amendment as presented. Is there a motion for that recommendation?
So
John?
moved.
Second? Charlie? Any questions? Okay, all those in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Frazier. You're up again.
All right, on page 11 now that you've approved these budget amendments, we're going to be asking you to officially approve the final operating budget for fiscal 18-19. This is on page 12 of your board book. We see there the original adopted budget that we did last year in the first column. And the second column is our new final amended budget for 18-19. And the third column shows you the net change, increase or decrease, to each of those categories as a result of all the budget amendments that were approved throughout the year. So you'll see that we started with about 113,000 surplus. All of the amendments, now with the final amendments, the final budget is about $1.2 million in the whole. And a lot of that is going to be your 81 function, which is facilities on the new high school renovation that you've been approving out of fund balance. So that's most of it right there is that $1 million that we've taken out of fund balance for the high school renovation. And we did have about 500,000 last year that was committed out of fund balance for things that we this coming year will have in budget. And so that is part of this also. So it's not too bad really, considering everything. Any questions on that? Any of the numbers?
On student transportation,
Food
the 122 over,
Oh, okay. On student pupil transportation?
yes.
We
Buses.
added two school buses, or I added school
What I
buses.
thought, but I
There's some
wanted to-
vans
Wanted to make sure.
in there that weren't in the original budget.
Good deal, thank
Yep.
you.
Facility maintenance, you see that's going to be about 100,000 we went over. In the maintenance department, I knew that was going to be tough. And then the other biggie was probably the extracurricular activities, about 100,000. We went in with a $60,000 budget for that playoff advancement fund that you're familiar with, and we wound up spending 85. And next year we're going to be upping that to 100. So.
Okay, we do need to have a recommendation for, you recommend?
I recommend that you approve the final operating budget for 18-19.
Okay. You've heard that recommendation. Is there a motion? Cheyenne, a second? I'll second. Any questions? Okay, all those in favor, raise your hand. None opposed. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Frazier.
So it falls into place pretty much if you follow along, all that we've been doing all year in the budget amendments. It pretty well falls into place of what you should already be aware of. Ready for the next item, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
All right, so now the Board of Trustees will open up a public discussion of the district's proposed 2019-2020 budget and tax levy rates in support of that budget. So this is the official opening of the public meeting, and it's available for public comment. I have a PowerPoint that I'm going to use to kind of introduce. I've got a lot of sheets here that were in your board book. It's basically showing you next year's budget in a lot of different formats. Showing it to you this way, showing it to you that way, showing a top view, a bottom view, and so there's a lot of numbers. So I prepared this afternoon to maybe kind of give you, encapsulate next year's budget. So this is our GISD operating budget. We have the acronym in education called YAG. Year at a glance. This is BAG. Budget at a glance.
Good.
Yeah. So a new acronym.
Catchy.
Oh yeah, I've got that. Sorry, I was waiting for you to advance the slides. So here's a budget snapshot. Total revenues, $28,770,055. Total appropriations, almost the same number, $28,757,633. And we'll allow our paper guy time to write those down. Those are very important numbers. That represents a surplus of $12,422. It's pretty close to a balanced budget, I would say. The INS fund is a little bit in the hole, about 60-some thousand. And the general fund has more of a surplus that took care of the INS deficit and then wound up with a net gain of $12,422. This represents about 11% increase in our budget from a year ago. All right, let's look at the revenues. Of those revenues, local sources, which most of this is going to be the tax levy, is 10.3 million, which is 36% of our budget. And that is actually down 56,000 from a year ago, which is a negative 0.5%. And that's primarily due to the tax rate compression, going from $1.04 to 97. The actual taxes, net taxes that we will be getting on the tax levy is up a little bit. But overall, on the local sources, it's down. And the reason for that, I think, is we had 150,000 budgeted last year for the sale of a property. It didn't happen, and we didn't put that in the budget this year. So you see about 36% of our revenues are from local. State, Texas provides 16.5 million, which is about 57.4%. And that is an increase over last year of 2.357 million, or 16.6%. That's pretty much in line with what I had been predicting to you guys, about 2 million or so gain in the state revenues. Came out actually a little better. Federal programs, 1.9 million, or 6.6% of the total budget. And that's up nearly 500,000, or 33.6%. And that increase is attributable to the Medicaid reimbursements that you're, of course, familiar with. If you got any questions, you can stop me along the way. Okay?
Question.
I want you to understand this budget.
You mentioned the 150,000 that was from the property sales that was put into the budget.
Last year.
Why was that put in when we didn't have it? Is that standard to count it? Or?
Well, actually we had that sale was a pretty serious sale with Captain D's. And
you don't count your money until you get it. Why are we counting that?
Well, we had to have a balanced budget for one thing.
Uh-huh.
And so that was 150 on the revenue side, and we put 500,000 in the fund balance side. So it took some real dickering last year to get that thing balanced. But it did look serious at that point, that we were going to be closing on that property. So it wasn't like just pie in the sky. I mean, it was, but it never happened. Now it has become pie in the sky. Mm-hmm. So anyway, you understand what we did there? Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, the appropriations, I'm going to give you those by functional category. Instruction is 14.9 million, which is almost 52% of our budget, and that is up 1.24 million over last year, or a 9.1% increase in instruction. And a lot of that is going toward your teacher salaries and other people like your counselors and librarians, etc. So this number, again, falls in pretty closely with the number that we've been representing to you. Instructional support, which is like library, your campus leadership is 4.6 million, 16.1%. That's up about 500,000, or 12.1%. District operations, which would include the facilities, transportation, and food service, those are 6.5 million, 22.6% of the budget. Those are up almost $1 million. Those three categories right there are 17.4%. A lot of that's going to have to do with your facilities and transportation that are much better provided for in this 2019-2020 budget. Central admin, 1.2 million, 4%, up about 100,000 over the prior year, 10.1%. Half of that increase is the fee that we pay to MSB to service those reimbursement payments on the Medicaid. The debt service, 1.3 million, 4.5% of the budget. It's down about 35,000 from last year, or negative 2.6. And we have a few other items, 0.3 million, 0.9%. That's up about 100,000. And of course, when you have any kind of a movement on small numbers, it can look like a big number on the percentage wise. Any questions here? Yes, sir.
On the, I mean, we cut a position in the central administration.
Hmm?
And we have a 10% increase in the budget.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know, is there, the other night I
That's
asked a question on that,
personnel.
and there was other things to do with the construction or something that was,
No, I mean, that's gonna be personnel. It's going to be, let's see, I think technology's in there, in that number. But, I mean, the biggest increase that I saw was the 45,000 increase in the fee that we're gonna have to be paying to service those payments on the reimbursements from Medicaid. That was the largest. I didn't really
and that's
see.
charged to central administration?
Mm-hmm. Because it's like a management fee that we have to pay to them.
Basically a contracted
It's
service.
like a contracted service.
So their fee went up $45,000 this year?
It's going to because of that $500,000 increase in income that we projected.
Since the revenue
So we
went
were
up,
getting
then
about
the-
The
$300,000
charge went up.
in those Medicaid payments, was kind of the standard. Now, next year, we're budgeting $850,000 in income off those Medicaid payments, and they take a fee of 8%.
That's what I was gonna ask, if it was a percentage, okay, there you go.
They do a good job.
Yeah.
And they've helped us really maximize our Medicaid reimbursements.
Obviously.
Any other questions? This is the time to ask. If I don't know, Bear will know. All right, now let's take a look at those appropriations by expense type. Most of it's going to fall in personnel, salaries and benefits. 21.1 million, 73.4% of our overall budget is in personnel cost. Contracted services, 3.1 million, and that's 10.7% of the budget. What falls in contracted services? Those of you who know about object codes, it's any 6200 object code. It's basically, it does include your utilities. Actually, utilities are charged to a 6200 number, like electricity and all that's in that number. Contracted services is anytime you pay somebody to do something who is not an employee. So that's basically where that comes. So you're, like in maintenance, anytime they hire out people to come and do work, it's contracted services. We have a number of employees in special ed that are not employees of the district but are contracted out. That's going to be in the contracted services.
And all ESC, right?
Yes, Region 12, all they're a 6200 number. So the ones that work in this all day in, day out, they know those 6200 numbers, and that's what falls in under contracted services. Anything else I think I should mention that?
I think that's big.
I think that's,
Would that
I just know that
include,
utilities fall in there.
would that include food
Hmm?
for cafeterias?
Yes.
Yes.
Good question. 6200 is the payments to Sodexo. Mm-hmm. They're contracted. Yeah. I forgot about that one. That's a big one. The MSB services that we just mentioned, they're going to be a 6200 number. They're going to be in contracted services. Supplies and materials, 1.9 million, 6.6%. Those are the 6300 codes. That includes textbooks, all the supplies, maintenance supplies, fuel for the transportation, that's a 6300 number. It includes software costs. We have a lot of software that the district contracts each year for a lot of different reasons. Most of it's educational purposes. Travel, meals, and fees, that's a 6400 number. That's all the travel, it's student travel, it's employee travel, board travel, the meal reimbursements, whether it's when they're on a trip or whether it's like feeding kids when they go on to a game. That's in this 6400 number. And 6400 number is going to include fees, registration to events, conferences, all that good stuff. It's about $700,000 here, 2.5%. Debt service, which we saw was a little bit down this next year, 1.3 million, 4.5%. Capital outlay, 500,000. So here we have, in the budget, about 500,000 in capital outlays. A lot of that is going to be, about 100 of that is the copiers. Several hundred of that is in the maintenance area. And then we had another 100 just unassigned capital acquisition in the budget for contingencies on capital. And this is where we just, that had been pretty much zeroed out in this past year's budget. So we do have, it's kind of an all-inclusive budget, this budget for next year. We didn't want to leave anything out. So, and then a small other, about 100,000. I think that most of that's going to be the, could be the transfer. I think most of that's the transfer to the food service, actually, for about 100,000 of potential loss on the food service. Any questions here? That gives you a good overview of where your expenditures go, I think. You have a question, Ms. Lee?
That 100,000 you said a loss in the food service?
Food service? Yeah, you'll see in a later report how I have
That's-
originally projected at 135. The current projection is 100.
Okay.
But we of course hope to do much better than that.
And that's less than what it used to be?
Yes, I mean, when we started this thing, we were at a $250,000
Yeah,
loss.
that's what I was
And it was
thinking.
growing exponentially every year.
So we're in better shape there.
Mhm. Now, the good news is that these first 2 weeks, the meal participation is good. It's very good. And those cafeteria workers can't hardly wait till they get out the first report. But I usually wait till we get 2 weeks worth, so that, because if you show a line going up or down, you have to have 2 points on the line, right? Because we have just 1 week, and then just 1 week just stays there as a point. So I said, we'll get the first report out for the second point, for the second week. But when I hear the numbers are looking really good on participation, and that's, this evening meal program we're looking at, piloting could certainly help bring down the deficit as well. All right, so we had about a 2.87 million increase in the appropriations. So this slide, I'm showing you where it went. Where did that increase go? 1.24 million went to instruction. And a lot of that's going to be your teachers, professionals, counselors, in that group. 43% of that increase went to instruction. 17.4%, $500,000, went to instructional support. District operations, facilities, transportation, food service, about $1 million, 33%. Central admin, 100,000. You saw that same number in an earlier slide, 3.5%, and then the other, about 110,000, 3.8. So if you want to know what happened to all that, nearly $3 million, well, that's where it went. Pretty much in a nutshell. Ready for the next one? All right, so I got 2 more slides. These are like, what's in the budget? So I just kind of try to think some questions you might have. And so you might say, okay, well, what's in that budget anyway? So here's some things that are in the budget. Provision for 5 SROs for the district, 1 per campus. That's full-time, 5 positions full. We're not going to fill them all right away, but 5 are in the budget. So we take safety very seriously. We have 3 open professional teaching positions.
Yes.
Okay. She knows the latest. And this is what we had 0, last year, and it was just like bare bones. So we do have some open positions, just for contingency. You never know what might happen during the year's time with a staff as big as ours. We do have room in here for 2 brand new school buses in the budget. So no need to be taking those out of fund balance. We have a big project to replace all the HVAC units at the intermediate campus. That's about $150,000 project, I believe. We're going to take that out of budget, not fund balance. We did increase significantly the maintenance and capital outlays. As we mentioned, maintenance actually went over. It was really just too small of a budget to take care of this aging campuses that we have, and they work really hard. Our maintenance crew does to keep everything patched up. Replace the carpet flooring at primary campus. I'm thinking that's 100, 125 maybe, somewhere in that range. We have new athletic uniforms for 4 athletic teams: football, boys and girls basketball, and tennis. We have 8 new Xerox copiers that are coming in next week for the school district. And 5 of those are what we call heavy duty production equipment, which is it's above a copier. So they beat the heck out of those things on the campuses, believe me. They make a lot of copies. And we don't want to be hearing from the teachers. You certainly won't be hearing from the teachers complaining about our copiers. Because they go to the copier, it's got to work, right? They're all busy. They're in a hurry to get back to class. So those are coming in mid to late next week. And then we have an additional $350,000 for CAPE projects. As you recall, we have an increased number of participation in our CAPE classes, which drives CAPE funding. So the funding actually gets transferred from regular ed to CAPE. It has a little, a little kick to it. You get a little bit more than you would under a regular ed situation, but basically you're still trading regular ed dollars for CAPE dollars. And so the problem is that you got to spend the CAPE dollars. So once we get all the budget together, we can see how much we have in the budget for CAPE. And here, right at the very end, we come up and plug it in here, this number. This is what it's going to take to fulfill our mandated spending on CAPE, $350,000 more.
We could probably do that, can't we?
He's already spending.
He's
He's talking about
Another greenhouse.
I got one wait.
Second story.
He has no problem coming up with ideas.
Good.
job.
Right, Shane?
Good man.
Peanut will be the big one this year, so I'll tag.
But that's an exciting program. A lot of kids are involved in that.
That's good.
They're getting certified. Boy, I mean, it's wonderful what the district is doing now to provide for our kiddos and getting them career ready. And so we're more than happy to do this, and this fulfills, that requirement that we have to spend those funds. Last slide. What else is in the budget? Reduced M&O tax rate. Thought everybody would cheer. $1.04 pressed down to 97. That's a big deal. It's offset by additional state funding. So that's a 7-cent decrease in our M&O tax rate. What else? Employee raises. We put about $1.25 million in employee raises. A lot of that went for teachers and librarians and counselors, but everybody, no one got less than a 2% raise. 2% was the very minimum. Next was GISD adoption of the new state teacher salary schedule, which is mandated. You have to pay the teachers at least what that salary schedule is. And that salary schedule hadn't been touched by the state in quite a while. And that schedule actually went up about 20%. So it was a pretty hefty increase. But on top of that, adopting the state minimum, we're providing $1,000 additional per step. And the state stops at step 20. And we continue on through steps 21 to 30 at a $600 a year increase in each of those steps. GISD is increasing its monthly health care contribution to $378, which is an increase of $11 a month per employee. So we're providing the minimum, the high deductible plan at the employee-only premium. We're providing that 100%. So that's a good thing. This one here, we have been giving a supplemental payment, which has been authorized by the board several years ago, and we started giving it in December. About a year or two ago, we started giving it in November, so they could take advantage of Black Friday. Because by the time we get their paycheck in December, Christmas is almost already over. So they like that. They really did like that when we moved it up a month.
Yeah.
So now we're proposing to do 500 across the board, all employees, all full-time employees. Whereas before we did 500 for professionals, 400 for paras, 300 for auxiliary. So this is what we're proposing.
None for part-time?
Like for half, it'd be half.
Okay,
We
so they do
prorate.
get some.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, it's prorated.
Yeah.
Most of them are full-time.
What year did that begin?
Oh, you're gonna ask me that.
Oh.
Oh, gosh. It's Probably, I'd say 6 years.
The year you left. It wasn't 6 years ago.
You don't think it was 6?
No, sir, I can guarantee you it
It's been
was.
sooner than 6?
Yes, sir.
5? No.
Must have been.
It's at least.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
Cause
If it had been 6,
I'm just saying, cause I never got one.
You never
so.
had it? It may have been the year after you left.
Are you making a
Westbrook's
demand?
out of here, let's give him a bonus.
Are you making a demand? Well, anyway, this is a very nice
We gotta
program.
get some money.
And,
Sounds like you want backpack.
mhm. So we think that would make everybody very happy. Just include all staff. Everybody's important, whether they're a custodian or a teacher or administrator. Everybody's important. We've also provided for our employees, all employees, a new district-provided employee assistance program, which has been explained to you recently. And this will be free to employees. The district is paying the entire cost of this, and this is a good thing. A lot of our employees, I'm sure, will be taking advantage of this confidential service that will be available to them. Other things we've done is we've increased the employee meal allowance rates from 28 to 30 a day. It's been pretty low. That's much lower than the state allowance, but it's a step. And on the student side, we've increased their allowance from $14 to $20 a day. And so I think all of our sports, particular, but even UIL and all those going to various playoffs and advancement exercises will benefit from this. We do allow them to supplement the student rate up to the adult rate if they use activity funds. So sometimes they'll go on a trip and they say, can we use activity funds to kind of supplement what the district provides? So yes, up to the adult rate, but in no case will it go exceed what the adults would get. But they have to supplement that through their activity accounts. Okay, so that's my slides. So that's basically all these sheets, starting on page 15. Is all detailed numbers of what I just presented to you. So I'm not going to go sit here and go through all of these. I did highlight in red changes if it went up or down. Green usually means up, red means down. So for instance, on page 16, if you turn over to page 16, this is the district revenues, the $28,770,000. It just barely shows right there, doesn't it? Right there. That's supposed to be in pink or a little light red, and so is that one. So these are changes since the budget workshop. So what I wanted to do was to kind of highlight those, to let you know what has changed since we did have that budget workshop. Was that a week ago? 2 weeks ago?
Week and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah.
12. What's it?
So the general fund revenue went down a little bit. It was 26.180. Now it's 25, so that's down about 200,000. I was more conservative on the amount of revenue from the state, because you never know, it can fluctuate. And in addition, I took the payment for the overpayment. We got overpaid this year about 300,000 from the state. So what they'll do is they'll turn around and make you pay it next year. So you basically comes out of your next year's funding. So on the budget workshop number, I did not have that deduction. And so that deduction's in there. Food service was decreased the amount of the food service subsidy. And the biggest thing is at the budget workshop, I didn't really have all of the payroll numbers. We were still working on payroll numbers. And this new application called PMIS that we've been implementing, Ms. Worthing has worked very hard, her and her staff, on implementing the PMIS program, which will allow us to manage the positions and the pay and the budgeting for HR much easier in the future. That just came together just real recently. And so you'll see some of the numbers are much more accurate now. So on page 17, this is the general fund revenue. You'll see that the big change was in the line 16, school foundation, decreased about 250. 18 is the TRS on behalf, So I did, the 1.2 million was a guess at the budget workshop. Now it's 1.4, which that's a good number now. Let's see, moving on to page 18, you see some reds, you see some greens. Personnel actually went down from the budget workshop. Several of the campuses went down. We have final numbers now on like our contracts with Region 12. They were initially preliminary, and so that actually brought some of the costs down in some of the campuses. The state allotments, we went ahead and put in an additional 100,000 for Kate. So that 400,000 there on state allotments is 350 for Kate, and the other 50 for the high school allotment, which is going away actually, but they're coming up now with a new allotment called College, Career, and Military Readiness. And it's about $80,000 allotment. To a great extent, it's going to replace the high school allotment, a lot of what we spend on that 50. So I think it's going to be able to transfer over. Ms. Worthing has already figured out a way to maybe move another staff person over to that PIC code and take care of that additional $30,000 required spending on that PIC code. Those of you who are familiar with PIC codes, Program Intent Code is what they stand for. It's part of that long string of digits that we use. And a lot of those allotments, they give you an allotment by PIC code. Like 23 is special ed, 21 is GT, 25 is ESL, 30 is comp ed. And so they give you these revenues by these PIC codes, and you got to spend a certain percentage of those PIC codes. Sometimes it's 58%, sometimes it's 100%. And so we just have to make sure that when we're doing a budget, that I've checked all these PIC codes on the revenue side to make sure that the budget has all the mandatory spending levels that are required, so we don't come up at the end of the year short on spending for one of the categories and have to come up asking for another big budget. Athletics went up. This is a transition in the AD director, and the uniform rotation was left out. The new director got a hold of it and said, "Oh, wait a minute, we don't have the," because we have a planned rotation for those athletic uniforms, and so we added that back into the athletic budget. Food service went down. District administration went up 6,000. We added a program to track all of the users on all of our copiers, about 35 copiers district-wide, and they wanted to be able to track all the usage by user. And so this is going to be a third-party software. It runs about 6,000 for the entire year, and that's going to be implemented shortly after we get these new copiers in. That's the reason why the line 19 went up from the budget workshop. Let's see, what is this? Yeah. And then on page 19, this is just the district administration part of the district admin budget. And so that 6,000 that I just mentioned is on line 7 on page 19. So that's a change for the budget workshop. You good with that? Any questions on the changes since the budget workshop?
Just a question for you.
Yep.
How do you feel about the budget this year?
How do I feel about the budget?
Now, I know you always work hard on this and really commiserate. So what's your personal feelings?
Exhausted? No, I'm just this has been a difficult year because of what the legislature did, which is great. I mean, I appreciate the legislature. They worked very hard this year, and they did a lot of stuff. The additional funds to allow us to reduce the M&O rate, the raises, and a lot of other things that really are for the benefit of the kids. They've done a lot of work, and I appreciate our legislature and our governor and all those that had a part in doing this. But you know, every 2 years, as a school district, we're faced at the mercy, basically, of what the legislature is going to do to you. And so, the law is signed in June, mid to late June, by the governor, and then all the wheels start cranking. TEA, they start, okay, let's digest this law. I said, what do we got to do? So then they got to come up with all these regulations and procedures and forms and how are we going to administer this law? And like for instance, we don't even have a summary finance from Texas Education Agency. I hadn't said that to you, but that's true. I rely on the summary finance. We look at that real closely. One side of it's called the LPE, which is what they're gonna pay you. The other side's DPE, which is what you're earning. So once they set your schedule up, and they'll set your payment up for the whole year, that's called LPE. So we haven't received our LPE yet. That's never happened to me since I've been doing this. But here we are approving a budget before the state even issues their summary finance for our district. So we rely on other sources besides TDA to come up with these numbers. There are, you know, a number of individuals that are used as resources in predicting what these amounts are going to be. Omar Garcia has got the most famous of the templates. Yeah, it's a very complicated template.
That's
He used
some
to work
math
for
right
TDA.
there, yeah.
Exactly. So I feel pretty comfortable, David, about where it is, where the income's going to be. I feel comfortable in the budget because everybody had a part in building it. I think everybody's pretty happy with the budget. You know, all the campus administrators, and teachers, and all of our departments, from maintenance to food service. I think everybody's pretty happy with the amounts that we've allocated for their use. And for your benefit, you know, we tried to put everything that we need to operate this school district next year in the budget, with nothing hidden and nothing left off to the side, like surprise me later kind of thing.
In previous years, it wasn't like that, is that correct? Somewhat.
No, I mean, we had a lot more, for instance, under previous superintendent, we had more open positions in the budget during those years. And then as things got tighter, you know, there were some changes made, as you well know, in the personnel, positions added, and even things like the SROs. And it just, our budgets kept getting squeezed and squeezed and squeezed. So the last couple of years, it's been basically a bare bones budget. And it was so bare bones that it really didn't include everything. But we needed to present you a balanced budget, so we did. But with the understanding that, you know, we're allocating some fund balance to take care of the difference over here. So it was like we didn't like hide stuff, but it was a little, I don't know what you call it, a little money game that you can play, moving pieces around.
3-card money.
If
Yeah.
you keep it out for this end of the year, instead of having put it in the fund balance to pull out of it if you need it, then it's already there for you in an
Yeah,
account.
I mean, I was very nervous under that arrangement.
Yeah.
You know, just like that maintenance, I knew that maintenance budget wasn't going to work. And there's no way that our maintenance department can run this campus, this, you know, district campus with that small of a budget. And they worked hard at it, but, you know, they overran it. But, you know, if something breaks, they don't have a choice. They got to fix it. And so they, you know, to a certain extent, yeah, they look at the budget, do I have the money for it? But if it breaks, they fix it. And they don't care if they have the money for it or not. It's up to us to kind of figure out where we're going to come up with the money. So that's kind of the year we've been having. So I feel good about it. I really do. I'm at rest, I'm at peace.
You're resting peacefully now?
Not as peaceful as I will when I die, but.
Mr. Frazier, you cannot die. You are not allowed to die.
Well,
Or
okay.
retire.
Thank you
May the
for
Lord
your,
come back before that.
thank you for your hard work.
Well, you're welcome. And thank you, board, for your support and for your dedication to doing things right. And, you know, you're not playing around. You're serious about this district. You want to operate it conservatively and fiscally responsibly. And I appreciate your commitment to that end. And I think as a staff, from the superintendent down, are delivering on your directives and your wishes. But I do thank everybody in the district, because we start this in February. And so everybody just about in the district has had a part in building the budget. So it takes a lot of work on our staff here at admin office. And we got a great staff here, and they really pulled through to get this done. Okay, so let's see, page 20. This is the web posting that's currently on our website. 10 days prior to adoption of the budget, we're required to post this on our website. You got on there maybe 7 days. I think I missed 3 days, but we did our best. Anyway, this is what it looks like on the website. So you have last year's adopted budget, and then you have the proposed budget that we're recommending to you tonight. And percentage-wise, I pretty much gave you those percentages in those slides. So unless you have, something here jumps out at you, I'll kind of go slow so that you have time maybe to digest it. These numbers are pretty much the numbers that were reflected in the slides that I presented to you earlier. And then the next page, page 21, is what will be posted tonight after the board meeting, after you approve the budget. And this is what the web posting will look like here on your page 21. It shows last year's adopted budget and then next year's adopted budget. On line 11, instruction on the appropriations, I have a note here to go to page 28. Okay, on page 28, 29, and 30. These are reports that come out of our Texas management software. And this report here, these 3 pages, will show you the function, like instruction, that first one right there, right here. And then down on these columns, it will show you the category type of expense. Like 6100 is your labor, and 6200 is your contracted. So these numbers were reflected on the slides that I showed you. In addition, so I've highlighted each function for you. And then over here, I've also highlighted the change. The change between last year and this coming year. So like instruction, 1.22 was the increase. So this gives you some pretty detailed numbers. You can look at it by function, you can look at it by expense type, and I'm showing you the increase or decrease. I've highlighted those for you to make it easy for you to peruse it. So that's what I was referencing, page 28. So local sources revenues is down, state program revenues are up, school leadership is up, student transportation is up, facilities maintenance up, security and monitoring services up. So those are the big highlights. The rest of them are either going to be kind of flat or small gain or small loss. Those are the big movements. And so on page 22 is the beginning of the reports on the appropriations that we get out of the Texas software. Page 22, you have the revenues on the first column, and it's by fund, so you know we budget for Fund 181, 182, 199, 240, and 599. Those are all the funds that are included in this budget. So you'll see, for instance, on that second line, Fund 182, the appropriations is now going to be $100,000 for the playoffs and advancement. We actually wound up spending, we budgeted 60 this year, wound up spending 85. So this is continuing to grow as all of our groups are getting more active and are actually competing at higher levels. They're making these trips and traveling at these competitions. So that's that number.
And that's the playoff fund for everything.
Playoff fund for everything.
Welding,
anything
everything.
UIL, could be music, could be band, could be
Right.
choir, could be Skills USA, FFA, all of them. Anytime they go to advancements, then their advancement expense will come out of this fund. So they don't have to budget for it in their regular budget, because they don't know necessarily what they're going to spend from one year to the next if they're going to make like playoffs.
Yeah.
So when we created this fund a few years ago, Coach Cooper called that his best gift ever. Yeah, as far as accounting goes. So you see there on the bottom right, you have a 12,422 net gain overall. And so you'll see on the very far right column, the gains or losses by each fund. There's the debt service fund, loss of 65,000. But we've got ample fund balance in the INS fund to take care of that. Okay? And page 32. So Texas report, just again showing you the total appropriations by function category. And then starting on page 33, we have 4 or 5 pages that show you for each fund the breakdown of the revenues. Specifically, as 5,700 is local, 5,800 is state, 5,900 is federal, and then 7,900 can either be sale of surplus goods or can be a transfer. Any more questions or anything you want to ask about the budget? Let's throw it out, start back over.
Yeah, let's do that. You got time?
Huh?
You got time?
No.
How does
I think the budget has to be adopted.
How does the
by
budget
September.
compare what we're doing now for the coming school year compared to how do you handle the budget if this bond passed? Do you take the money that and that's a separate budget basically that you've got to build that school with, or?
Yep.
This is not affected?
This budget has nothing to do with high school renovation.
Okay.
Just know that. High school renovation won't impact this budget at all. So, whether you have high school renovation or you don't, this budget stands alone. So you'll see here a little bit later, we're going to start getting into fund balance designations. And we've had agreed to designate 9.5 of fund balance and 9.5 of a bond, which now is 9.9. But you'll see that we have enough designated in the fund balance to do our 9.9 if we needed to do 9.9. So you do almost a $20 million project out of fund balance. So it's going to strictly be out of fund balance and the bond funds. When the bond funds come in, they'll go into a separate fund, and we'll actually have a separate bank account for those bond funds. And then we can, depending on how we want to do it, we can transfer, we can either use the bond funds first, probably what we should do, and use the fund balance later. So we'll use down the bond funds first, and then when those are depleted, then we'll start making transfers to that project fund from the general fund balance, But it's not going to impact the budget.
And the only thing I've noticed is the amount of surplus that you had at the beginning was like $12,000.
Mm-hmm.
That to me says a tight budget.
That's not much.
Well, that's not much. Now, when you're dealing with $28 million,
Yeah.
you're gonna have to watch your balances in the accounts. Just my opinion.
But I think we have sufficient
Cushions built in.
funds budgeted here and there to take care of everything. I think we do. Because we're not going to spend that much.
The
in all
numbers are very,
categories.
very
If everybody spent
conservative.
100%, yeah.
Conservative
we'd be down to
numbers.
12,000.
Yes.
But that usually doesn't happen. So, we present to you the 19-20 fiscal year budget, operating budget, for your approval.
Oh, that's the final. Okay. What page is the, oh, it's right here, okay. Page 14, okay. Well, Mr. Frazier, I want to piggyback what David said about, we appreciate all your work, and I know everybody in here has done a bunch of it. Everybody who's not in here has helped do this, so we thank you for everything that you.
We were all on the same page.
Daryl
That's
and
great.
All the staff.
Daryl and Marcia and Mackenzie and Dana and Joyce and just everybody up and down this hallway, much like the teachers, late at night, you'll see their cars, Saturday, Sunday. And the thing that worked against them this year is the fact that so much was up in the air and down to the very last minute. And so they're trying to make these accurate projections, but the state's working against them because they're not getting what they need to the very last. But it also Daryl or somebody would think of something, oh, we forgot to put this in here. So I really think that we've tried to capture just about every little thing possible in the budget. Daryl was so pleased with it one morning. He came in when it was finally done. I thought he was going to cry. He was so happy. It was like a thing of beauty.
With the
So,
$25,000, with the,
yeah.
You making that up?
yeah.
You making that up?
No, that was
No.
true. I remember
I
the morning.
witnessed it, I remember that.
Yeah.
I got that on.
It's a big budget, and you got numbers coming from everywhere. You know, the legislature did all this stuff, and we're doing these raises, and it's like, how's it gonna settle out at the very end when you shake it down? You know, it's like, woo, high five. It worked.
It takes
Yeah.
months and months to do it, and a lot of meetings, a lot of
Mhm.
grade level meetings, a lot of meetings.
You know, like on the teacher thing, we hope that's not the last move that we can make on teacher compensation. But to have done more than we did, probably would have been a stretch and might have put us in a bad spot. This is a big step, what we've taken, and we feel very good about where the budget is currently, and we can entertain additional compensation for teachers next year or the year after. It's not necessarily going to be a stagnant thing where you keep it the same every year. So it's not like the last raise they're ever going to see, what I'm trying to tell you.
I appreciate getting everything included in the budget. That to me is transparency. There's no skeletons in the closet, everything's on the table, and I appreciate that. I think that's very important.
And it takes everybody's help on that too.
Very good job.
Because a lot of times they,
A lot of planning.
oh, I forgot, I didn't put this in there. Just like the athletic thing on the uniforms. That got put in after the budget workshop. So, you know, it took everybody, you know, thinking real hard, what are you gonna need next year to run your programs? Don't come back later with a surprise, you know, we gotta put it in here. So, that's kind of what we're doing. Thank you, Rob.
Lots of hours right there. And pencils and erasers.
So, Mr. Frazier, you're recommending the approval of the final operating budget for 2019 to 2020?
Yes, ma'am, please.
Is there a motion?
I would make that motion.
Rob, second, Charlie? Okay, any other questions? All right. All in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Frazier.
And I realize it's a lot of numbers. If you think of something later, you can always ask Barrett if he needs help in answering the question. I'll help him.
Thank you.
So.
All right, if you want to just stay up there and.
All right.
Give another
Take all the
tax
way.
rate.
Okay, so we're going to go back. We're going to page 38. The next thing we need to do is to officially adopt our M&O tax rate for next year. And this will form the basis for the tax levy that typically are mailed out late September, early October. So we are recommending to the board that you approve the adoption of a M&O tax rate of 0.97, which is considered the 2019 tax levy in support of the 19-20 school year. This is the rate that was set by the state legislature this year. We had no choice. This is basically, this is what you do. Can't go down, can't go up. So it's like, okay. In future years, you'll have some options. This year, you don't have any options. So this 97 is what we got to do to stay in good grace with our state. But you still need to officially adopt it.
Yes. So you're recommending approval and adoption of a 2019 maintenance and operations
Tax rate of 97.
tax
Correct.
levy rate of 97 cents. Is there a motion for that?
I'll make
Cheyenne, or
Okay.
Cheyenne, you want a second, John?
Sure.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yes. Was this what, I believe Rob asked one time in the past year, how we could lower it? Was this what you asked about lowering and it was like impossible?
Well, the lowering came from the
I know.
state mandates, not some.
But it's odd that you tried to get it, or tried to find out how could we do it, no, you can't, and then the state says, here's what you gotta do.
But the state kicked in a bunch more money also, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, change the funding for
Yeah.
that.
Maybe you brought it up on, they watched.
I made a phone call.
Sometimes they rob Peter and pay Paul,
Yeah.
right?
I'll just tell you this, a penny, which is, we still have a few golden pennies, will raise about 300,000 in revenues. You might be thinking about that someday.
Any other questions? Mona?
Because you're probably facing another compression next year. But next year's compression won't be mandatory. In other words, you'll have the prerogative to keep it at 97 as a board. So if they compress this down to 95, you will actually have the right to set a 97-cent rate without going to the public on a TRE vote. Anything above the 97, yeah, you have to go to the taxpayers for approval. But each penny, about 300,000 in revenues. So just keep that in mind. That's good for the golden pennies, about 4 pennies. After that, it drops off in half, which is about 150,000 increase. After you get past the golden pennies, up to the limit. There's a limit on how much you can set your tax rate at. Anyway, just food for thought.
Okay, any more questions? Okay, all those in favor, raise your hand. None opposed. Thank you, Mr. Frazier. Thank you, everybody else who got a part in that.
Thank you.
And you're still on you're still up with fund balance resolution?
All right, so next
Excuse
one on
me.
page 39.
Your INS.
Now we need to approve the INS rate, the interest and sinking fund. And we're not recommending any change to the INS rate, which is 13.7 cents. We're going to voters with a bond, which would increase this rate by maybe 9 cents or so, 9.5. And but right now for this school year, we are proposing a INS tax levy rate of 13.7 cents. So that's what management is recommending to the board.
Oh, you've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion? I'll make the motion. Second? Linda, any questions? Okay. All those in favor, raise your hand, please. Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you
Mr.
very
Frazier.
much. All right, so now that you've approved the M&O and the INS tax rate for 2019 in support of our 1920 school budget, the next thing for you to approve is what we call the ordinance 43 to set the tax rate. And I believe this actually is read by one of y'all.
Ms. Lee,
And these are posted on our website.
Okay.
So last year's was number 42. So this year's will be number 43.
I much prefer that, thank you. Okay.
So this just confirms our M&O rate, INS rate, and the total rate of 1.107.
Whereas the Board of Trustees of Gatesville Independent School District must establish the tax rates to be levied on taxable property within the Gatesville Independent School District, which is to be recorded on the Corio County tax rolls. Whereas the Board of Trustees has approved and adopted the tax rolls of the Gatesville Independent School District and the total valuation of all taxable property rendered for taxation for the year 2019 is $886,382,550. Whereas the Board of Trustees has adopted the budget for the 2019-2020 school year and it is now necessary to establish the 2019 tax rate in support of the 2020 fiscal year budget. Whereas the Board of Trustees has approved keeping the same property tax rate as last year by adopting a tax rate of $1.107. Now, therefore, be it ordained by the Board of Trustees of the Gatesville Independent School District, Gatesville, Texas, Section 1, total tax rate. A total tax rate aggregating 1.107 shall be levied on each $100 valuation of all taxable property located in the Gatesville Independent School District and appearing on the assessment roll for the year 2019 in accordance with the Constitution and laws of the state of Texas. This tax rate represents an effective rate decrease of 0.62% and will raise 1.23% more taxes for maintenance and operation than last year's tax rate. Section 2, allocation of tax rate. 0.97 of the total rate is specifically leveled for current maintenance and operation expenses, M&O, and 0.137 of the total rate is specifically levied for the payment of principal and interest on debt, INS. This tax rate will increase taxes for maintenance and operations on a $100,000 home by approximately $17.68. Section 3, levy. There is hereby levied and shall be collected from every person, firm, and corporation pursuing an occupation in Gatesville Independent School District, which is taxable by law, the full amount of taxes permitted by the laws of the state of Texas. Such taxes are to be assessed and collected by the Corio County Tax Assessor Collector. Section 4, severability. If any portion of the ordinance or the application of the same to any person or set of circumstances is for any reason held to be unconstitutional, void, or invalid, or for any reason unenforceable, the validity of the remaining portions of this ordinance or the application to other persons or sets of circumstances shall not be affected, it being the intent of the Board of Trustees of the Gatesville Independent School District, Gatesville, Texas, in adopting this ordinance, that no portion contained in it shall become inoperative or fail by reasons of any unconstitutionality or invalidity of any other portion. Section 5, effective date. This ordinance shall become effective upon adoption. Adopted by the Board of Trustees of Gatesville Independent School District at a meeting on August 29, 2019, at which a quorum was present and for which due notice was given pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.001 and Texas Education Code 44.004.
We need to redact part of a sentence in this one. On the first page, about halfway down.
Not the same.
It says, whereas the Board of Trustees has approved, I need to delete keeping the same property tax rate as last year. Just delete that. Delete that whole sentence. I thought I had deleted that, but
Okay.
apparently it's on here.
Because it's,
So it should have read, whereas the Board of Trustees has approved adopting a tax rate of 1.107. Sorry about that. Then you all will sign, President, Secretary. All right, next item.
Oh, we need a motion and a second
Need a
and
motion to
adoption,
approve that.
please.
First.
the adoption of the tax ordinance number 43 is what it is.
Page 40.
So, it's recommended the approval and adoption of the 2019 tax ordinance number 43, calling for a total tax levy rate of $1.107. Okay, you've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion? Bob? Second? David? Any questions? All those in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? None. Okay, motion carries. So, Mr. Frazier, you're still up.
All right, so now we're going to be recommending to the board a resolution that deals with our August 31, 2019 fund balance. You won't know what that fund balance is exactly until you get your audit report. which has lately been presented at the December board meeting. And that report typically is put together in final form toward the end of November. So the final fund balance number is yet to be known for 2019, but what we're going to do here is we are going to make some designations of that fund balance. I don't anticipate much of a change in the fund balance between now and the end of the audit. And so this resolution is talking about several different items that we're going to commit or we're going to assign from the fund balance. And I believe this resolution has to be read as well, but I'll explain it real quick here. First one is going to deal with the $100,000 that we're going to commit for the district's 25% residential placement set aside, which is required under the Individual with Disabilities Education Act Part B. You can either put that in your budget. We've just chosen to put that in here. We haven't had any of this since we started our own SPED program. But you know, if you were to have a residential placement, they could be very expensive, and we're required to put it in reserve. So we're going to commit $100,000 of our fund balance for that purpose. The next one is $8.5 million that we're going to commit for the high school renovation. We've already pretty much basically spent $1 million out of fund balance. A lot of that's gone toward the architect firm. And so now we're down from the 9.5, we're down to 8.5 that we're going to commit of the August 31, 2019 fund balance. The next one is $2 million. We have done this as long as I've been here, where we commit $2 million for potential fluctuations in state aid and delays in the district's August state aid payment. That's happened once or twice on my watch, where they get in a bind down there in Austin, and they decide to postpone your August payment. In our case, it's about $2 million. So you eventually get it, but this right here says we want to protect ourselves in case that happens again. We're going to have $2 million in fund balance reserve to cover that. And then lastly, we have $500,000 assigned for major capital acquisitions and facility projects as future needs dictate, and that the superintendent's hereby authorized to make. So this $500,000 is not anything specific like we had last year. Like we knew there was some buses in there, and there was a bunch of stuff that made up that 500. We kept it at 500, but in this case, it's probably going to be our insurance policy against that project going maybe from 19.4 to possibly 20 million. So if it does wind up where we need 10 million out of fund balance and 10 million from the bond, then we'll have this 500,000 here as a safety net to cover that. So again, we really tried hard to protect everything and to think of everything on this budget. So we're proposing this resolution for the board to approve, and these numbers will be reflected on the audit report that's issued, and you'll see an audit report where it has the fund balance and it has these various designations of fund balance.
Okay.
Okay.
You've recommended
Proposing
it.
this resolution, yep.
Is there a motion for that recommendation?
Make that
Charlie?
motion.
Second. David, thank you. Any questions? Okay, all in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. So you have to read it.
I don't know that that one has to be read, does it?
Oh,
Can that be read?
I
Okay.
don't, not that I'm aware of.
Almost
but
ready,
I
all
mean,
right.
it's-
So it's me.
You see right there?
I think we normally just read the tax ordinance unless something's
Okay.
changed.
Approved?
Yes, motion carries
Okay, good.
unanimously.
Thank you. All right, lastly, this is they call it a GASB fund balance designation or assignment, which has to do with the campus activity funds. So what this is doing is we're assigning out of fund balance campus activity funds, basically saying we're not going to touch those. Those are proprietary to the campuses. And that's kind of what this resolution does. It kind of protects our campus activity funds. That resolution is on page 46. It's GASB 54. It's called Assignment of Campus Activity Funds. We don't ever want to get into a situation where we're having to actually forcibly dip into those campus activity funds. They're all generated by that campus, the staff and the students at that campus, and fundraisers and whatnot. And we're basically saying that as a school district, we're not going to touch it. So that's the commitment we're making to the campus activity funds.
Any question? Or before we start? Okay. You've heard the motion for the approval of the districts, of the portion of the district's fund balance in the amount being held in campus activity funds. Is there a motion for that? David, seconded by Linda. Now any questions? Everybody gets it, okay. All those in favor, raise your hand. None opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Frazier.
Thank you.
You
You
probably
didn't
sit
ask me
down.
what GASB stood for. Governmental Accounting Standards Board. There you have it.
Okay, thank you.
One board meeting, they asked, what does GASB stand for?
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay, I had to think that.
Daryl,
Thank y'all.
You ended
Thank
with
you
a
for
bang.
telling us.
Yeah,
Yes, you did. Mr. Frazier takes care of us all the way around. Okay, Dr. Paula, what are we
Last,
talking about?
last
Board
2 or 3
goals?
items here. So we introduced this at the last meeting. It was basically started at the team of 8 training where Dr. Norris said, hey, you've got too many goals, too lengthy, too wordy. Get it down to 3, 4, 5 goals at the most. Put them in easy to understand language to where the person walking down the street would understand it. And so I tried to get the ball rolling by just presenting you guys with a rough draft for you guys to look at. If you had time to look at those, my recommendation tonight would be to give me any changes you want to make, deletions, additions, and we can get them approved and adopted to where we have some simple goals.
Well, I do.
Okay?
On number 1, I was wondering if we could put at the beginning, Gatesville will put students first and will continue to improve its facilities.
Okay.
And,
That's a good preface.
Mhm.
And then the other thing, I was looking at the ones from the past that were the wordy ones and everything, and it mentioned keeping campus plans current and updated. I know we do that, but is that something that needs to be on there, or is that just an understood? What do y'all think? They do it every year. The
I think
campus
it's
plans are
understood.
reviewed and
Which one is
not
it?
really needed to be put in.
We will, it's on the September agenda too, so it is automatic.
Automatic, okay, so that's not really necessary.
And legislative, I believe, correct? Or at least administrative code anyway.
Okay. Anybody else?
I think they're pretty straightforward and
I like
That was
anybody can understand them.
Right.
Just, that's what we're after.
Yeah.
Try to encapsulate what you guys are passionate about, what you bring up, and so try to get them all into this, and at the same time not make it too wordy.
What about on number 5? That's the only thing that bothered me is the very last.
Okay.
And invest in our adults in order to improve teacher retention.
Mhm.
And do we want to say our adults or our employees or our teachers?
Employee retention instead of just
Yeah.
teachers, everybody?
Yeah.
Okay, and
Sure.
invest in our adults in order to improve employee retention.
Our adults is what bothers me.
Okay, invest in our employees.
Yes.
In our employees
To
in
improve
order
retention.
to improve.
Yeah.
Okay, in order to
Okay.
improve retention. Okay.
Even less work.
Mm.
Because adults.
Just to improve our retention, okay.
That was like I told you
Be here
up
for a
front,
month.
the plain spoken everyday language
Yeah.
is dead on the money. They did a good job.
And that would rule out some people that are here anyway.
I think it includes everything that we've discussed in the past in our goals.
Kind of
just
big
in the
stuff.
shorter, more understandable wording.
A list to wade through also.
I think Dr. Norris would be proud.
Yeah. I'll let him know. He's always. So I guess I'll recommend these 5 then with the changes that we mentioned. Any other changes? So that'll be my recommendation.
I'm happy with
Okay, is there a motion for that recommendation, David? Second? Linda? Any questions, one more time? Okay. All those in favor of accepting the goals, raise your hand. Motion carries. Thanks, Barry. That's good. Now, the partnership with Frost Driving School.
So Frost Driving School is based out of Belton, Harker Heights, and back during the spring, you know, it's been a while since we've had a driver's ed company partner with us to just at least offer it to the kids. And a lot of parents maybe don't have the temperament to do driver's ed with their kids. And so this is an option to where if you wanted to have a traditional driver's ed course with a driver's ed instructor, it's no cost to the district. We would partner with that company. And we've been going back and forth with David Martin. He's the CEO. And again, he has been very positive about this potential partnership. And so basically it would happen at the high school after hours. If we approve it tonight, we would sign the form, send it off to the state so they can approve it, because it takes 30 days before then we can start offering courses. He recommended you could have little mini masters and things like that. The course is a total of 16 days. They don't have to be consecutive days. 2 hours a session for a total of 32 hours. Again, we base it upon availability, demand, that sort of thing. I sent out an email to the high school staff just asking, would anybody be interested in doing this? And I had quite a few say, yeah, I'd be interested in doing it. It pays $15 an hour. Again, it's zero cost to us, and really it's also zero administrative work. We were a little bit talking with Yancey, wanting to make sure we didn't have to keep up with all the paperwork and all that. The company takes care of all that. So they might come one day to kind of give an enrollment, and then after that, they take care of everything else. So
They provide all the paper and all the.
So any sort of registration work, that sort of thing, they take care of that.
All those forms we used to have to do, those
Oh,
D,
yeah.
that you had to
Whatever,
from the state. I
because
mean,
we
it
can't
was-
hold files of those things.
What's the cost to the student?
I looked that up right before I got in here. It is for classroom and behind the wheel instruction is $395. For just behind the wheel training, it's $285. Now, I don't know, that was just off the website. After he partners with us, I don't know if he might cut our students a better deal, I don't know. And so we haven't talked about price yet. But again, no cost to us, it's just we're housing it and we're making it available for the kids to have a traditional driver's ed. So my recommendation would be that the board allow us to enter into a partnership with Frost Driving School so that driver's ed courses can be offered at GHS after hours.
Is there a motion for that,
I'll
David?
make that motion.
Second? Cheyenne? Okay. Any other questions? Okay. All those in favor, raise your hand, please. Motion carries. Good luck with that.
Yeah, it'd be
Sounds
good. Be good.
That's great.
I'm gonna be a driver, instructor. No, I'm joking. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So the second to last thing here is the evening meal program. So we broached this subject earlier in an earlier meeting. But again, we were excited about this for a couple reasons. The first one being that some kids that maybe go hungry at night would have something right before they go out the door. Also, it helps out all those kids that are in band and football that go out there and practice for countless hours. They haven't had anything or they're rushing around to get something. But then also the second good thing that could come out of it would help the bottom line. You know, with Sodexo, those executives that came to meet with us during the summer, they said, this could really help your program. And so they highly encouraged us to think about it, and we thought it was a great idea. Gail's been working a lot with the state. She's been talking a lot with Region 12, been working with Daryl. There's an application that would allow you to get into the program if you wish, and so she's been working on that, we would get reimbursed $3.55 a meal from the state. And so Sodexo execs said that if you hit about 30 meals, you're breaking even, but once you hit 50, you start to really make some money. And so again, they've had some success in Del Valley, Huntsville, Waco, and so we've been working with the principals pretty closely on the logistics of it. So the deal is that you have to offer a 15-minute enrichment after school in order to be able to honestly and ethically do the program. And so the 15-minute enrichment really isn't that huge of an obstacle because there's already a lot of different enrichments going on anyway. You know, science clubs and different things after hours. It could be even as simple as a 15-minute, you know, stranger danger type thing with the little ones, or just whatever it might be to make sure that they're getting something worthwhile, but it triggers the meal. So the cafeteria would have to stay open 1 hour after school, but again, we're thinking that the kids would probably go down there very quickly after the bell rings, get their lunch. Sodexo and the state, they want the kids to eat the food here. They don't want them taking it home because the fear is that someone else might take it and eat it. And so that's the impetus behind, let's make sure they eat it here. Really the only thing now is we're just trying to work out days of the week, logistics as far as if you're riding a bus, are you still gonna be able to grab one? That's really the biggest obstacle. But a lot of our bus riders, they sit there for 15 minutes anyway. And so they could probably get the meal and be ready and catch the bus anyway. There's no law that says if Johnny goes down there, runs and gets a lunch, but he says, I'm not going to that enrichment, we don't have to police that. The tracking and accounting of it is at the point of sale. So when they enter in the little number in the cafeteria, that's how they track it. And so really, Gail, the principals, they feel pretty good about it. We'll probably start junior high, high school first because logistically I think they're just more apt to be able to do it. The little ones we're still working through, like primary, we don't really want to shuttle all of them back down to the cafeteria to get that. We'd rather take it to them, or, you know, because that would be a nightmare. So again, this is just another informational item to keep you guys in the loop that we keep progressing towards that. And so we don't really see any pitfalls to it. Again, we're just trying to make sure we do it correctly, but it seems to be a good thing for the kids.
So would they sign up for it, so you knew you're gonna fix so many lunches or suppers, whatever you call it?
Yeah.
And if kids don't show up to get it, then it goes to waste?
Well, we've got to try to, the first couple times we're trying to predict what's gonna happen. And so there's an element of mystery there that we don't know. And so after the first few days, we'll have a much better idea of, okay, how many kids are really gonna take advantage of this? And so Gail's already been trying to put together some estimates of what she thinks might happen, how it plays out. But with the number of kids that go to football and band and all those different things already, it's probably gonna be a pretty big group of kids that grab it. So again, that helps in a lot of different ways.
And it's gonna be mandatory that they eat it in the cafeteria?
Well, you know, they get it, they could go back, if they're not in, if they go back to
On school
football,
property.
yeah, on school property.
Or the enrichment.
Or the enrichment, they might go back to math class to get their tutoring, they could eat it in there, that sort of thing. So again, I don't see any downfalls to it, other than just trying to get the logistics.
Inside the classroom.
Yeah.
What would the meal be like, a sandwich?
Kind of like what we did there in the summer evening, I would think. You know, the summer meal program where it's a sack, you could take it. It could have a burger in it. Usually it has like a vegetable with it. It's pretty substantial as far as something mid-afternoon.
Well, it sounds real helpful for the students. A lot of kids go home and don't get anything to eat.
Right.
So that sounds great.
So that really, again, it's just informational, but if you guys think of anything that worries you or you want us to look into more, we will. But we've been working, again, Gail's been doing a lot of talking with Sodexo, with Region 12. Daryl's going to be prepared because they will audit it. They're going to make sure, they want to see how it goes. And but it could be a potential as far as like savings on Sodexo or meals. It could help us a lot.
Not beyond that 100 case.
That's right, that's right. Bottom line is kids are being fed.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah.
They need it. Okay, you want to talk about extending your authorization
Yes.
to our employees?
Yes, last time we mentioned this, but I need to make a motion. So as you know, we still have a couple of lingering positions open, one being the primary principal job. And so we did interviews today, and we'll do some more tomorrow. But just to kind of quickly wrap up some of those lingering spots, I was going to make a recommendation to extend the superintendent's authorization to hire professional employees through September 30th, and hopefully after that, we'll be wrapped up and done. So.
And we need to vote on that, Marcy?
Yes, please.
Okay. All right, you've heard the recommendation to, okay, Rob, just made the motion. Okay, Melissa seconded it. Okay, any questions? Okay, all in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? None.
Give us a good one.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you guys.
Keep up the good work.
Yes. Anything for future agenda items, anybody?
No, revenue return, I got.
Okay, you done?
I'm done.
Mr. Frazier, would you like to say anything else?
Thank you for listening.
Thanks again for your hard work.
Thank you.
Very much.
Yeah,
Pleasure working with you, board.
thank you. Okay, we're adjourned.
On a different note, and I saw it on Facebook, so it has to be.